How are we doing? Good. Thank you very much. Round of applause. I'm understanding you guys didn't get a break. Is that true? Did I get that part right? Everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. Let's go. Let's go. Stand up. Although I think somebody did this earlier, my apologies. And I realize I'm the only American speaker, at least today. Came a long way for this. I appreciate that. Everybody's feeling good? Yeah. All right, let's go ahead. Let's get seated. We're going to get going because I am not going to cause us to fall behind. This is a very advanced clicker here. Outstanding. Thank you very much. Go ahead. Have a seat. Have a seat. Appreciate that. We're going to take a few minutes here along with Praveen, my esteemed colleague here at BluSapphire. We're an India-based company with our U.S. headquarters in Dallas, Texas. Leaders in the XDR space. And I thought the panel before was outstanding. There were a few comments that were made, and it really tied in with what we're going to talk about. The challenges within the SOC, making sure that people are optimized and operating efficiently. So let me just go ahead and jump into things. And in this chart, we're really talking about two things. On the left-hand side, and everybody understands the points there, this is what makes your job so difficult. And I've always believed CISOs have the hardest job in the executive ranks, okay? If you're the finance person, you have to worry about compliance, you have to worry about new tax laws. If you're in marketing, you have to worry about brand imaging. But each of you have to worry about the bad people, the people who are going to attack you, the people who are looking to steal, and they are very aggressive, they are very talented. You make the right decisions. You make brilliant decisions. You bring in a new solution, you change a process, but when you make a change, that person out there ups the game to the next step. And it never ends. It keeps going, right? If you're at the point where you're saying, I've solved this problem, I've put in Splunk, I'll give a shout out to my CrowdStrike friends. He did a great job there. The minute that you get complacent and think, I've solved this problem, that's the first day that you're on your way to getting into trouble, right? This just never ends, and you always have to be looking ahead. And when you come to a conference like this, I think there is a bit of validation on what you've done so far, but most importantly, you have to understand where to go. And if you don't understand where to go, you get left behind, and it creates problems. The chart on the other side, this is not our data. This is just data that comes from the industry. You can look at the numbers. But the reality is most of you today have brought in multiple vendors, multiple solutions. They each do a great job. We're not going to disparage any of our colleagues that are out here in the booths. And they all provide you information, and they all provide you alerts, and that by itself is perfectly fine. But the challenge to be effective is you have to correlate all this data. And that gets very, very hard, right? That's where SOCs sometimes fall apart. Those are the comments that were made up here. And ultimately, when you take a look at the numbers, what you see is there's a large number of alerts, there's a large number of incidents that occur in your networks that don't get tended to. So that's a big problem, okay? And ultimately, that becomes part of why many security operations centers become inefficient, okay? They get inundated with that information that's been siloed, which is the second bullet point. Oftentimes, the approach, whether or not you're running your SOC in-house, whether you've chosen to run it out, you may have chosen an approach that doesn't work the best. And ultimately, you take an approach that solves the problems of today and don't look at the future and where you're going and what needs to be done. Okay? So ultimately, you've got these various tools, and we're taking a look in terms of what each of them are doing, and then the question becomes, how do we bridge these silos? How do we get to the point where we're taking the information that's coming in and making informed decisions on it? And from our perspective, and I think it's very, very important to understand, our founder used to sit in your chair, okay? The founder of our company was a CISO. Is originally from India, but came to New York and was on Wall Street. He has sat in your chair. He has made the decisions that you've made, and ultimately built our platform based upon the positive things he's experienced, the challenges, and embrace this XDR framework. And listen, I'm not here to advocate for Gartner. There's times I love them, there's times I don't like them. But ultimately, I think they usually have a very good understanding of where the industry is going. And we strongly, strongly believe that the XDR platform, that approach is where you need to take a look at and where things are going to go. And what they're predicting is over a third, 38% of organizations will have moved to this type of a platform by 2025. Okay?
Thank you, Louis.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Louis. Can you folks hear me okay? Awesome, awesome. That was just amazing in terms of where the industry is. But I'm not here to teach you in terms of what an XDR is, but I just wanted to emphasize a little in terms of how complex the vendors have made your lives. And I really emphasize about that and just give you a context of where is this world moving towards in terms of XDR. Per se, if you think of an XDR as a function, it's going to do three major things for you. And of course, I want to help you in terms of consolidating the number of tools that are completely disparate. Number two is it's going to make sure that a lot of data that you have never contextualized, you're never being able to utilize to the benefit that was supposed to be. It ensures that there is tremendous amount of automation in terms of how the advanced correlation is happening, how enrichment is happening across disparate tools, with more contextual insight of the fundamental signals, the main signals that can be used to track the initial malicious intent within the organization. In fact, at the last presentation, we heard that it takes over 85 minutes for an attacker to start baiting within the organization. So it doesn't make sense for you to wait for 85 minutes. What if you have the contextual data, which today you have, the XDR solves for you and does immense amount of correlation just to look at what are those signals, intent signals, which are at the initial stages, and ensure that you identify an attack in minutes. And that is exactly where the world is moving towards. And finally, how do we reduce the complexity in terms of the response capabilities? Let me tell you, at the end of the day, you're limited in terms of number of teams, number of processes, and of course, how do you perform a response? I don't believe that you have, or any one of us has a capability to start writing playbooks for each and every activity. It's going to be thousands and maybe 100,000. That's not practical. XDR solves your problem in combining efficient frameworks on how a response can happen natively and also integrate with third-party tools to perform wonderful response capabilities. But then the challenge right now is further complexity, which we just spoke of. XDR per se has a different perspective from vendor to vendor, solution to solution. And fundamentally, you may want to see there are a couple of them. One is, of course, the native XDR and an open XDR. And if you had to dive down in terms of what a native XDR and an open XDR is, don't get me wrong, each one of them has amazing capability in itself and has cons as well. But if you think of native XDR, it is essentially a proprietary tech stack, but then, mind you, it has a bolt-on functionality, maybe because there's a vendor who may have acquired 3 or more different functionalities, built that integration made possible, but it doesn't work in reality when you start deploying them. They have a single license, and because it's a single license model, it gets deployed really fast, which means the metric that you constantly chase for, which is time to value, is just amazing. The other one is, of course, the open XDR, which allows you to consolidate a bunch of functionalities that are disparate today, which we spoke of, a core functionality of XDR per se, reduce the complexity that you may have, and kind of open system in terms of performing response and remediation. But then we flipped chart a little and said, are we supposed to focus on native or are we supposed to focus on XDR? Because the problems that you face day in and day out cannot be solved by what vendor is talking. Your problems are quite unique. What we work with over 50 plus clients today, and what we have noticed is every client is different. Every client has a separate security challenge by themselves. And there's no silver bullet that we can carry as an XDR or an EDR or any other acronym that the world of cybersecurity vendors have thrown at. Every client is unique. Every process is different. Every challenge is different. And hence, it becomes quintessential for us to identify, can we consolidate the best of native and the open XDR frameworks, allowing the flexibility of integrations, openness in terms of customization, and at the same time, native capabilities which allows tight-knit orchestration to perform rapid threat detection, or rather triage, and also response and remediation. And that is exactly what we as BluSapphire has built back in 2017. If you look at Gartner's research, and again, not being much on Gartner, but 2017, 2018, we were recognized as cool vendors. And the functionality that was there within the paper just reflects the kind of evolution that the XDR has taken over a period of time. Now, like I said, your challenges are completely different, and we may not have seen them before, but that's okay. But we are quite confident that we do have a solution, and we can actually work through that. And we are not marketers. We are core technologists. As my colleague just mentioned, the founder himself was a CISO at one point of time with 25 years of experience, going through the challenges that you go in and day out, and had to build this functionality to address majority of them. Now, we're more than happy to connect with you, go into the problem solving more than just pitching the solution and say, hey, you know what, we've got a silver bullet, we can do triage, we can do enrichment. Oh, this fancy stuff is amazing, but is it really impacting you is the larger question. I would always encourage for you folks to visit us. Happy to have a problem solving session, understand what your challenges are, and we are quite positive that we should be able to address them in some shape or form. Thank you so much, and just amazing that we all get to know each other.
Thank you.